Helping Seniors Television, all about improving quality of life for seniors. If you're a senior, know a senior, or plan to be a senior, then this show is for you. It's all about helping you develop your own aging plan so you can age actively and with dignity. Helping Seniors Television from the Helping Seniors Network of information, education, and resources.
I'm Kerry Fink. Welcome to this edition of Helping Seniors Television. The show is designed to inform, educate, and connect you to resources that will make a difference as you put together your own aging plan. As we talked about many times, our founder and president, Joe Steckler, has talked over and over about the importance of making an aging plan. Those of us in Florida get the fact of a hurricane plan. Does not mean by any stretch of the imagination we want to have a hurricane come at us, but we want to be prepared if something is headed our way. And that's kind of the idea behind the aging plan, which is an idea of like, what are common things that we want to understand maybe coming around the bend at us, and we want to be sure that we're prepared so that we're not having to react to them in a crisis, but in fact are able to get a couple of steps ahead. And so we call that making your aging plan, or kind of euphemistically, we talk about it as getting your ducks in a row. And even farther than that, one of the things that we've discovered along the way as a Florida nonprofit trying to help seniors, the families that care about seniors and people who expect to be a senior one day, we really want them to kind of be thinking about these things ahead. And one of the corollary things that we've discovered to getting your ducks in a row is something we say called don't do this or don't try this on your own. And that's really what's so important about what we're going to talk about today, because we are blessed to have with us today as our special guest, attorney, elder law attorney, Amy B. Van Fossen of the Law Office of Amy B. Van Fossen, one of the largest, fastest growing elder law practices here in Brevard County, with a number of great attorneys who are really specialists in their own particular niche. But Amy, you've been doing this now for almost 20 years, you said, with the practice. You guys are expanding by leaps and bounds, but one of the things that really hasn't changed is your commitment to excellence for helping the seniors get all this stuff right.
We've tried, and we do seminars, and we do all types of educational seminars and information, distributing information out there, and we still can't get them in the door sometimes. So it's really important to just take that first step.
You know, we were having a conversation a little bit earlier today with somebody about this very tactic, like why is it that it's so difficult for us to wrap our arms around the benefits of this? Because you, in your law practice, you are there to help families when they are in crisis. Something has gone horribly wrong. They didn't do the right planning. You're still there to step in and try to make the best of a very bad situation. But I have heard from every single person in your office, I wish these people would come and see us before we got to that point, because we'd have so many more options. They'd be less costly. There'd be more peace in the family and everything like that. And yet this is something that you've seen now for 20 years, that whole pattern.
Well, I have seen the pattern, and some families are very proactive, and it is great. They all get along. They come in way before mom or dad have a medical crisis. And then we see all day long people that have, they call us when mom and dad are already in a facility or in the hospital. So it is very frustrating when we can't do legal documents for someone who's already lost capacity.
Yeah.
I had that client this morning, and there's nothing we can do except for guardianship. And guardianships can be very stressful and expensive, and there are ways to avoid the guardianship process just by getting your ducks in a row.
You know, and that's really what we want to dive in today. We want to talk about what does that mean, kind of like in the aging plan. I know you have contributed articles into the Helping Seniors newsletter along the way. We've done television shows along the way. But really, the thing is that you say there's kind of like 5 big building blocks, I guess, is where you begin with. And you say, really, everybody, not just seniors, but anybody who's an adult probably needs these kind of documents.
Well, exactly. There's an estate plan. They're pretty common in every state. The number one document everyone needs is a durable power of attorney, and that can help you avoid the guardianship process. And I talk about it all day long. They're not all built the same. They're not all written the same. Mm-hmm. A divorce attorney would write a different power of attorney than an elder law attorney. So we embed within our powers of attorney lots of the information needed to Medicaid plan or VA plan later, if needed. Our powers of attorney are about 15 pages, and have been developed over 18 years of practicing law. So that is really the most important document for everyone. On top of that is the Living Well Healthcare Surrogate, where you're appointing who's going to make medical decisions for you if you're not able to. And do you want life support terminated or not? And that's a very stressful conversation with the kids, because the kids never want to pull the plug where the parents are ready sometimes. Medically, maybe they've had enough and they're ready for whatever's next in their lives. The document that sort of overlaps both of those is called the pre-need guardian. And it says, today I'm of sound mind. If I no longer am making good decisions for myself, I appoint my spouse, my kids, or whoever. It can be an outside company as well, can be appointed. And then everyone should have a will. And whether it's a standalone will or it's a will that goes with a revocable trust. Revocable trust is the quickest, easiest way to distribute property after you pass away. And the will that goes with that trust is called a pour-over will. So they look a little bit different. You never do a trust without a will. That's a big misconception. So everyone's like, oh, I have a trust, I don't need a will. It might be true, but it's not the best legal practice. And if I'm in your business anyway, let's just go ahead and get all this stuff done, right? So.
With all these different documents, to a lot of us, when we're just going down the road of life, we always have this idea, oh, we'll get to that. Well, at a certain point in time, but I'm not that old. I didn't need to worry about it. But yet in your law practice, you actually see some things happen with people that, would not be expected because of their age. And you even explained that as soon as a child becomes over the age of, is it 18, then all of a sudden the parents don't automatically have access to everything that's going on medically, even if that child is still living at home and such, right?
Well, exactly. Once your kids turned 18, they're now adults. And so by law, they have to have their own healthcare surrogate and their own power of attorney. My oldest daughter turned 18 September of her senior year of high school.
Wow.
So she was legally an adult. And so I was not able to make any legal or financial decisions or medical decisions for her once she turned 18. So we do like a little college packet. So when you're sending your kids off to college, we have a durable power of attorney in case you want to check up on their grades or, how much money they owe, as well as their medical documents. And again, those two documents, durable power of attorney, healthcare surrogate, avoids guardianship. And even if your kid's 18 years old and has had let's say a terrible accident or illness, the only way for you to make those decisions is through guardianship if you don't have those documents in place.
Yeah, and I want to back up and kind of like jog through each one of those five for a moment because, we live on the Space Coast, so we're used to hearing what I call NASA speaks. There's always some acronym or some abbreviation. So, and if you ever listen to two rocket scientists talk with each other, you can barely figure out what the conversation's about because it's that filled. One of the challenges I do think is that we hear terms like power of attorney, and we know generically that means that I'm giving somebody authority to do something in my life. And we've talked about this a lot too. First of all, there's more and more people who are getting older every day. It's just the graying of America. But then particularly here in Florida, we have so many people who are moving into Florida.
Right.
And then we have people who are discovering for the first time, well, maybe I need something like this. And with the prevalence of the internet and, if it's on the internet, it must be true. There's a lot of, you see ads on TV say, oh, I can just go do this myself, click a few boxes and I'm good to go. And I've been around you long enough to literally understand the dangers of what that means, because the minute you need a power of attorney to actually work is not a moment that you have a chance to correct any defects.
But sometimes you get one shot at it.
Yeah.
And so I reviewed one this morning written by a Florida lawyer who was an estate planning attorney. It was 5 years ago, and it does not have the provisions that allow me to Medicaid plan or VA plan. It's only like 5 pages. So you can pull some stuff off the internet, but that document, absolutely, please don't do it. And it's very expensive. The difference between a power of attorney being a few $100s versus guardianship being several thousands of dollars, and having to go to court and having to account for every penny that mom or dad had, it's very stressful.
Yeah, and I don't want to run just roughshod over this term of guardianship because maybe a lot of us we've heard the word, but we're not really sure what it means. But tell me if I'm getting this basically right. It means that now you're going through a court to have decisions approved and things like that. It's no longer like your family can't just help you through something or something like that. Am I saying that about right?
Yes, you are. And it's really stressful when you've been married 60, 70 years and you just assumed you can make decisions for your spouse, whether it's we're going to refinance the house to make it wheelchair acceptable. If your spouse doesn't have capacity and you don't have a power of attorney in place, you then have to go through guardianship court. And a guardianship judge may not allow that. Or if you get, let's pretend, $100,000 home equity line, you got to put 50 grand in, let's pretend, the wife's guardianship account, and then the husband has access to the other 50 grand. So it's a very stressful situation, and especially of that generation where they're just used to being very independent and doing all the things themselves. And now the government's like, yeah, no, you can't do that. And a very inexpensive, durable power of attorney would have fixed all of that.
That kind of goes back to, we all often the joke is, I'm here from the government, I'm here to help you. But, I've heard you say before, the government has a plan for you in almost all these cases. The problem is it may not be necessarily the plan that, you would prefer for you and your family.
Well, exactly. I mean, if you do not have a will, the state of Florida will tell you who your beneficiaries are. But if you do not have a power of attorney, the government will not tell you who's your power of attorney. And so it's really good that you appoint someone on your durable power of attorney, as well as appoint somebody who is medically and psychologically able to care for you, because it can be a very stressful situation. If mom or dad has a very long illness that takes, it takes a lot of time and energy, it can be exhausting. And so make sure you've got the right person appointed, and maybe pick one or two people. But certainly don't pick the child that maybe have some mental illness or financial, if a child has some financial instability, that may not be the person on the durable power of attorney. So make sure you pick the people. Not only does the document need to be well written, who you pick to act for you needs to be very well chosen as well.
And what you've also taught me along the way about this power of attorney is that even if you're familiar with this concept, maybe from another state, Florida has some pretty complex rules about that. If you don't specifically say something can be done, it can't.
Well, that's true. We have what's called superpowers. And so our durable power of attorney has probably 8 to 15 superpowers, depending on the family. And that allows us to maybe move money around if we're VA or Medicaid planning. And so if the power of attorney doesn't allow your child to, let's say, access your Fidelity IRA or your Fidelity brokerage account, and we have to ask a judge's permission, it means we're going to guardianship court. And that has happened in our office. We had someone a wonderful attorney, did a wonderful durable power of attorney, but Fidelity would not accept their power of attorney because it didn't have the gifting provisions, which is necessary in the Medicaid.
That's incredible, because these are the things that as just regular people just trying to move through life without the benefit of the experience and the training and the wisdom that you have in this area, these are things that we would never even think of. It wouldn't even hit our conscience like, this is pretty simple. I want my kids to have the house, so I'm just going to turn the house over to them. And we've talked along the way that, all these little maneuvers can really cause big problems at certain points along the journey.
Well, if at the end of the day, if you're wanting to avoid probate and you're wanting the children to inherit the house, a revocable trust is a great way to do it. And you maintain your homestead, all of the tax advantages as well as the creditor protections, because in Florida, our homesteaded house is creditor proof. You could owe millions of dollars to the hospital or something, and they won't touch your house. It's also protected on the Medicaid. So you do not have to sell your house in order to get on Medicaid. I'm from Ohio. My grandmother lost her house, or it had to be sold in order for her to go into a nursing home. We don't have to do that in Florida. You can have over $600,000 worth of equity in a house. And so those are the kinds of things that we never deed a house to a kid while you're still alive. It doesn't make sense. You and your child could both lose homestead or part of the homestead. You also lose all the tax advantages of capital gains after you pass away. So our rule in our office is we will not add a kid's name to a deed as owner, because there's too many very, very negative constraints that happens at that time.
Yeah, I was thinking we have actually done a TV show at one point that you said, should I put my kid on my bank account or my house title? And you were addressing specifically why neither of those things is a really good idea. And you really got into the reasoning behind it. So if you're new to the Helping Seniors TV, you can find those programs on helpingseniors.brevard.org. There's a search tab. You can just go in and search for the TV shows. We archive the TV, the radio, all the print columns that you and your family of attorneys have provided to the Helping Seniors, because we publish in the Senior Scene magazine. All that material is available there. And you can also find the TV and radio on our YouTube page and also on our Facebook page. And of course, watch 3 times a day, Monday through Friday, we broadcast on Space Coast Government TV. But the point of what I wanted to get at here is really that there are so many nuances to all of this stuff that you really need to have good help. Like you come in and you move in A lot of people are moving from the Midwest to Florida, maybe from the Northeast down to Florida because the weather's better. They think, maybe the tax climate is better. Whatever the reasons are, they're coming to Florida by bunches. And so maybe they've done a good job or thought they've done a good job of putting together these 5 essential documents, maybe with a very good law firm up north. But you always say it's really a good idea to sit down and make sure with somebody that really understands this from the Florida perspective to make sure it's still going to do what you had in mind.
Well, the durable power of attorney a lot of time is not valid here in Florida if it was written in another state. And we have a lot of people actually moving in from California, Colorado now. So we've got the West Coast is moving in by leaps and bounds since COVID. And the documents are just different. We do run by state law, and Florida durable powers of attorney are over the top. Crazy, I think, because we have such a large senior population and so much fraud, but we've put all kinds of extra stuff in our powers of attorney. I go a little bit crazy. People will go to their hometown attorney right before they move to Florida, and we've got everything rewritten in Minnesota, let's say, and they come to Florida, and a lot of it may have to be tweaked or rewritten. Not the whole thing. We try to save what we can, but that is the craziest thing. And then that you would get documents before you move to another state, as well as a lot of times old school attorneys will say, add your kid to the deed in other states, and they don't practice Medicaid or they don't practice VA, and there are ramifications for that. Yeah. So if you're wanting to avoid probate, again, a trust is a great way to go.
Yeah. So let's go back through those 5 key documents again. We've talked about the power of attorney. We talked about the healthcare surrogate a little bit. But that's the item that allows somebody else to speak for you with respect to medical decisions when you're not able. Am I saying that?
When you're not able to. So the durable power of attorney is good the minute you sign it. The healthcare surrogate is good when you sign it, but if you can make your own medical decisions, they'll listen to you first. And then the kids, let's say, are backups. So our medical is actually 3 documents in one. So it's the living will, which would say terminate life support if these events happened. And then there's the healthcare surrogate. And I have a daughter who's an attorney and a daughter who's a nurse. So my healthcare surrogate says daughter A or daughter B. Either one can make medical decisions for me. I can't remember the second part of that. Sorry.
No, we're actually talking about, so the healthcare surrogate is another important document that we need to have in place because, again, it's one of those things that, unfortunately, the moment that you might actually need it, you don't really get a do-over again.
Right.
And if you want to have somebody you know and trust be assisting in that, like we had a big conversation fairly recently with someone in your office who's in charge of case management. And we were talking about how valuable, for example, having a professional case manager can be because of the expertise, the contacts, just the knowledge base that they represent compared to like the average person who just doesn't deal with this every day. And yet you still have to have that paperwork so that everything can flow the way you had intended.
Well, absolutely. I have a good friend who is healthcare surrogate and other things on documents for his aunt, and he was having a lot of stress this weekend. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, pull out your healthcare document. I wrote it for this reason. You can make medical decisions for her. You can get her into an assisted living facility. So all of the documents are kind of like, we don't have a crystal ball what's going to happen with life. But all of the documents are there for a reason to help with if the worst case scenario happens.
Right. And that kind of zooms us back out to this concept of an aging plan, because that's exactly your point. You want to get these documents put together while there's plenty of time to have the luxury of thinking about, well, if this were to be the case, then I would want this to work out this way, as opposed to all of a sudden you're in the middle of a crisis. And I know from having talked with people in your office, like you are there to help them do. For example, I think you call it public benefits, but that's like helping somebody organize so they can qualify for Medicaid or for VA benefits. And your preference is to sit down with somebody well ahead of any need and make sure that everything is lined up so that, if that situation comes up, you've kind of already lined up the shot and it's a clear pathway to making it all work. And then the flip side is you also have to get involved when there's been no plan and now everything has gone horribly wrong. And that's really complicated at that point.
Well, it's so complicated and it can be expensive as well. A lot of times when we do a basic estate plan and we're doing the pre-planning, and if I find out that they either have a medical issue or they're a veteran, I will have them bring in a whole bunch of documents, and we'll go ahead and scan in their discharge certificate or their marriage certificate and some documents that should be kind of easy for the people to find, but maybe really difficult for the kids to find. And so we may just be doing a simple estate plan, but we'll go ahead and scan in all of that stuff in case there is a medical crisis later. We've got a file kind of already banked. And we also do what's called pre-planning on the Medicaid and the VA side. So my oldest daughter, Katie, is our public benefits attorney, and she will work up an analysis and basically stick you in a binder and stick you on a bookcase. And then when there's a medical crisis, people will call us and we'll be ready to go to step 2. A lot of times the public benefits are 3 different steps. Like step 1 is analysis, step 2 is action and doing things, and step 3 is an application. So we can do step 1 in advance and proactively. So a lot of times being proactive is just an estate plan, right? We're just getting at least those ducks in a row. And then if we can add a little bit more and say, please bring back these extra documents, it makes life a little bit easier.
Yeah, I've had the privilege of talking to some people that you've worked together with on helping them through that. And I kind of always come up with a couple of common denominators. First of all, they're so glad that they went through the process of doing this. Like, yeah, I wasn't really sure I wanted to do this, but I got on it, I went through it, and now I feel really good for not only myself, but my family, because everything's down, proper, and organized in a way that's going to make a difference. And I think it's a pretty common theme. And yet with that, we're always talking about what's the number one thing we can do to get somebody to enjoy that peace of mind. Go ahead and take the step and get involved and do this. And I know in particular, you guys spend a lot of time educating in the community. You'll do seminars, you'll do a lot of programs to help people at least start to ask the right questions. And then from there, then they can sit down and maybe talk with you or one of the attorneys in your office to be sure that their particular circumstances are being thought over.
Well, we've been doing seminars for years. I mean, I started actually doing VA planning before Medicaid, and I enjoyed because, being on the Space Coast, we have such a large populations of veterans. My office used to be very close to Patrick Air Force Base. So I started doing the VA benefits, and again, just seminars, and I educate all day long. We do at least one seminar a week somewhere, and we've been doing it for years and years and years. And it's a great way to come in to see where our office is, as well as get comfortable with the staff and learn a lot about the area of law. And then you get a free consultation if you come to a seminar. So it's a great way. It's kind of an icebreaker to get people in the door, and we want to make sure that we're a good fit for you.
No, it makes all the sense in the world. Now, as we kind of get into the wrap-up part, I wanted to ask you to share, if somebody says, I'm interested, I want to learn more, how do they get in touch with your office, or is there some resources they can find online too?
Well, we have a website, amybanfossen.com, where you can call us 321-345-5945 and ask for the next seminar. I believe all of our seminars are up to date now on our website. Mm-hmm. And we have an office downtown Melbourne, as well as we're opening a second office in Suntree January 2nd. So we will start having seminars up there as well, and trying to staff that right now. Yeah.
Well, it's so important. And I know we've talked about, the dangers of somebody trying to go this by themselves. Maybe they thought they were smart. I remember laughingly, we talked about the fact that we live in an area where there's a lot of, engineers are really, really brainy people. And so because of that, there's this great idea to think like, I can just read all the specs and figure this stuff out. But there's so many nuances when you get into it that you're almost like you're actually endangering yourself because, it's that thing, a little knowledge could be a dangerous thing,
Well, if you miss one sentence on a durable power of attorney, it could cost you $10,000 for guardianship. And we've seen that happen multiple times where an engineer has written a power of attorney for a parent and it didn't go as well as they thought it would. So.
And I've also heard you share stories where you've had to go in, somebody went to an attorney who may be a very good attorney in their specialty and said, oh, yeah, I can put that together for you. And so they draft a document, but then when it comes time for it to be used, I always use the analogy, it'd be like going to a podiatrist when you need a cardiologist. They're both excellent doctors, but it's just like they're dealing with different things. But yet people come into your office with stuff like that.
Well, it happens all day long. And again, my good friend this past weekend, he's like, I didn't have to go through any of these things with my mother that I'm going through with my aunt. And it's just very different. And it's been a few years and since he had to go through it with his mother. And there are nuances to it. And there are things that I always say that you all go through the aging process once or twice in a lifetime. We do it 20 times a week, and I've been doing it for 18 years. So there's just things we have learned along the way to make life a little bit easier. And dealing with a health crisis is so stressful in and of itself. Why not have the legal documents in place? Why not have that part taken care of? And then, like I was telling my friend this weekend, pull out your estate planning notebook I wrote for your aunt, grab the healthcare surrogate, grab the power of attorney, and get her in an assisted living. And he didn't know how to do it. I'm like, I was walking him through every step. So there's a reason for it all.
Well, and isn't that the point, is that you're having the ability to work with somebody. That's what we say, don't try this on your own. You're having the ability to work with somebody that, like I said, sure enough, this may be the first time you're trying to climb this mountain, but you guys climb that mountain, like you said, 20, 30 times a week and have for years.
Okay.
So there's not much that, I'm sure some stuff disappoints you because you say, well, this could have been fixed if you've just been able to do that. But really, it can't really surprise you anymore since you've probably seen most everything that could be out there.
Well, nothing's going to surprise me at this stage. You're right, after all these years. And even if you have all of the legal documents in place, sometimes you don't know how to use them or when to use them, which was our problem this past weekend.
If you were going to look at the camera and tell somebody, without, like, you need to do this, what would you say to them?
Please do this. Do this for your kids. When we write estate plans, I always say it's for the kids. It's not for mom and dad. Your kids are going to be stressed out enough when you have a medical crisis or you pass away. So why don't you let them have all the legal documents and allow them to take care of things the way you want them and plan it out, and talk to your kids. What is the aging plan? I'm shocked at how many people have no idea how to strategize that plan. Do you have lots of money where you can age at home and can pay for nurses in your home? Do you want to go to an assisted living? I want to go to an assisted living now. I want 3 meals a day in maid service, right? So let's go now. And unfortunately, some people end up in a skilled nursing. So whatever the plan is, our job is to tell you how to plan your life, your aging. As long as you're safe, we're okay with it. But if we pre-plan, it doesn't mean we're moving you into an assisted living tomorrow.
Right.
It just means we've got this plan in place. We'll make it a lot easier and seamless for the kids.
Such important advice from elder law attorney, Amy B. Van Fossen with the law office of Amy B. Van Fossen. Thank you, Amy, for joining us today. And thank you for joining us on this edition of Helping Seniors Television. We'll look for you on the next episode.
I'm Joe Steckler. Thank you for joining our program today. I'd like to remind you that our senior information line is available to you at 321-473-7770. There you can get help and direction that could be helpful for your specific situation or circumstances. The work of helping seniors is very important, but we can't do it alone. That is why our sponsors here in Brevard County are so important. I'd like to thank our many area sponsors, businesses, and medical providers who support the mission of helping seniors that help us carry the cost of our media efforts. If you'd like to join us either as a business partner or simply donate as an individual, we welcome your call at 321-473-7770. You are always welcome to visit our website at www.helpingseniors.brevard.org. Thanks so much for your help. It does make a difference.